The sky turned black at exactly 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. People across the world looked up from their phones, their work, their daily lives, and saw something that shouldn't exist. Massive ships, each one bigger than a city, hung in the air like dark mountains. They blocked out the sun. Within minutes, the whole world knew. Humanity was not alone in the universe anymore. Commander Park was eating lunch in the cafeteria of Sentinel-7, the orbital defense station that circled Earth, when the alarm started screaming. He dropped his food and ran to the command center. His crew was already there, staring at screens filled with red warnings. The ships had appeared without any signal, without any warning. They just materialized in Earth's atmosphere like ghosts becoming solid. "How many?" asked, his voice steady even though his heart was racing. 243, his second officer replied. "All major cities have at least one ship above them." Watched the screens. He had trained for war his whole life. He had prepared for conflicts with other nations, for terrorist attacks, even for asteroid strikes. But this, nothing could prepare anyone for this. The aliens attacked exactly 1 hour after they arrived. No message, no demands, no warning, they just started firing. Blue beams of light shot down from the ships and hit the ground. Where the beams touched, everything vanished. Buildings, streets, people, all gone in flashes of white light. The city of New Seoul disappeared in 4 minutes. Delhi lasted 6, was erased in 3. Captain Lee was flying a routine patrol over the Pacific Ocean when the first beam hit Australia. His fighter jet shook from the shockwave, even though he was thousands of miles away. His radio exploded with screaming voices, orders, and panic. He turned his jet toward the nearest alien ship and pushed the throttle to maximum. "Sentinel-7, this is Eagle 1, said into his radio. "I'm engaging the enemy." "Negative, Eagle 1's voice came back. "Return to base, we need to regroup." "There won't be a base if I don't try," said. He fired every missile he had at the alien ship hanging over Tokyo. The missiles flew fast and true. They hit the ship's surface and exploded in bright orange flowers of fire. Allowed himself 1 second of hope. Then the fire cleared. The ship was completely undamaged, not even a scratch. The alien vessel slowly rotated toward him, like a predator noticing an annoying fly. Felt his blood turn cold. He yanked his controls and dove away as a blue beam sliced through the space where he had been flying. He escaped by pure luck. All over the world the same thing happened. Fighter jets attacked, tanks fired, missiles launched. Nothing worked. The alien ships had shields that stopped everything. Bullets bounced off. Explosions did nothing. Humanity's weapons were useless. Doctor was in her laboratory at the Seoul Science Institute when the attack began. She was studying samples from Mars, looking for microscopic life. The building shook. She ran to the window and saw the alien ship above the city. She watched in horror as the blue beam fired. She watched as buildings vanished. She watched as people ran screaming through the streets. Then the beam hit her building, closed her eyes and waited for death, but it didn't come. The beam had stopped 3 floors below her. The aliens were being selective. They weren't trying to destroy everything. They were hunting. They were playing with their prey. Grabbed her laptop and ran. She had to survive. Someone had to study these creatures. Someone had to find a weakness. The first week was a nightmare. The aliens, humanity would later learn they called themselves the OK, destroyed 1 city each day. They broadcast their attacks on every television, every phone, every screen on Earth. They wanted humans to watch. They wanted humanity to be afraid. Between attacks, they sent one message in broken English. "You have 30 days. Surrender or die." The world governments met in emergency sessions. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to keep fighting. Most were just paralyzed with fear. 3 billion people were already dead. The OK hadn't even used their full force yet. This was just a game to them. Commander refused to accept defeat. He gathered every military officer he could contact on a secure channel. Was there, still alive somehow. Admiral from the lunar base joined the call. So did thousands of others from military bases around the world and in space. "We can't beat them with force," said, his face tired but determined on everyone's screens. "But we can study them. We can learn. We can adapt." "They're too powerful," someone argued. "We should surrender and hope for mercy." "They won't show mercy," said, his voice hard. "I saw what they did to Tokyo. They're not interested in ruling us. They're interested in destroying us for fun. We have no choice but to fight." Nodded. "Doctor has been analyzing the wreckage of a scout ship that crashed near Seoul. She thinks she's found something. We need time. We need to hold them off while our scientists work." "How do we hold off ships that can't be hurt?" Admiral asked. "We don't fight their ships," said, a small smile appearing on his face for the first time in days. "We fight smart. We make them work for every victory. We slow them down. We make them angry. Angry enemies make mistakes." The plan was desperate. Humanity would evacuate cities before the aliens attacked. They would use guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, anything to buy time. Soldiers would hide in mountains and forests, launching small attacks that annoyed the OK but didn't draw their full anger. It was a plan of survival, not victory, but it was something. And right now, something was all humanity had. Volunteered to lead the first harassment mission. 12 pilots would fly close to an alien ship, fire everything they had, and escape before the ship could respond. The goal wasn't to hurt the ship. The goal was to make the aliens chase them into a mountain range where anti-aircraft missiles were hidden. Maybe the missiles wouldn't hurt the ships, but the mountains might slow them down. As prepared for the mission, he looked at Earth from Sentinel-7's windows. His home looked so small and fragile from space. The alien ships looked like dark cancers spreading across its surface. He thought about his family, lost in New Seoul. He thought about the billions already dead. He thought about revenge. "We're going to make them regret coming here," whispered to himself. Commander stood beside him, hearing the words. He put a hand on the pilot's shoulder. "Yes," said quietly, "we will. Somehow we will make them regret it." Neither man knew if that was true, but they had to believe it, because without hope, humanity was already extinct. Doctor hadn't slept in 3 days. Her eyes burned as she stared at the alien technology spread across her laboratory table. The OK scout ship had crashed in the mountains outside Seoul, and recovery teams had brought her every piece they could find. Most of it was melted or broken, but was good at solving puzzles. "There," she whispered, pointing at her computer screen. Her assistant, a young engineer named, leaned closer to look. "What am I seeing?" asked. "Their shields work by deflecting physical and energy weapons," explained, her voice getting excited. "But look at this frequency pattern. There's a gap, a weakness." His eyes went wide. "Can we exploit it?" "Maybe," said. "If we can modify our weapons to emit this specific electromagnetic frequency, their shields might fail. It's just a theory, but it's the first hope we've had." They worked for another 12 hours straight, building a prototype weapon. It looked like a normal rifle, but had modified its internal systems to produce the frequency pattern had discovered. They had no way to test it against a real shield, so they had to hope their calculations were correct. Meanwhile, and his pilots were making life difficult for the OK. For 2 weeks, they had conducted hit-and-run attacks across Asia and the Pacific. They never did any real damage, but they were annoying. The aliens started sending small hunter ships to chase them. That's exactly what wanted. "They're getting frustrated," told his officers during a meeting. "Good. Frustrated enemies make mistakes." "We've lost 40 pilots," Admiral said grimly. "How long can we keep this up?" "As long as it takes," replied. "Doctor thinks she's close to something. We need to give her time." On the ground, things were worse. Sargent was leading a resistance group in what used to be Tokyo. The city was occupied now, crawling with OK soldiers. These aliens stood 9 feet tall, covered in thick armor like skin. They carried weapons that could vaporize a human with one shot, but her people were learning their patterns. They patrol in groups of 4, told her team, crouched in the ruins of a shopping mall. They always take the same routes. They're creatures of habit. So what do we do? One of her soldiers asked. We break their habits, said with a cold smile. They set up an ambush using explosives and fallen buildings. When the OK patrol came through, his team dropped an entire apartment building on them. The aliens were crushed under tons of concrete and steel. Their shields protected them from bullets and energy, but not from gravity and weight. It was humanity's first real kill, 4 dead aliens. It wasn't much, but it proved something important: the OK could die. News of the kill spread through the resistance networks. Humans around the world started using similar tactics: drop buildings on them, flood tunnels when they're inside, use the environment as a weapon. The OK hadn't expected this. They were used to fighting other aliens in space battles, not guerrilla warfare on a planet's surface. This weapon was ready for field testing. They needed someone brave enough to try it, volunteered immediately. If it doesn't work, I'm dead anyway, he said with a shrug. Might as well die trying something new. They mounted the prototype weapon on his fighter jet, flew alone toward a OK destroyer hanging over the ruins of Bangkok. His hands were sweating inside his gloves. This was either going to be humanity's greatest hope or his final flight. Sentinel-7, this is Eagle 1, he said into his radio. Beginning attack run. Good luck, Captain's voice came back. The commander's voice was steady, but could hear the tension underneath. Flew straight at the alien ship. Alarms screamed in his cockpit as the OK weapons locked onto him. He ignored them. He lined up his shot and fired the modified weapon. A beam of invisible electromagnetic energy shot out and hit the destroyer's shields. For 3 seconds nothing happened, prepared to die. Then the shields flickered. They flickered like a broken light bulb. Then they failed completely. It worked, screamed into his radio. The shields are down. He fired his conventional missiles. They hit the unprotected hull of the destroyer and exploded. Armor plating ripped apart. The ship started spinning out of control, smoke pouring from multiple holes. Watched in amazement as the massive vessel crashed into the ground below. Back on Sentinel-7, and his entire crew erupted in cheers. For the first time since the invasion began, they had proof that the OK could be beaten. Get that weapon into production immediately, ordered. I want every fighter, every ship, every soldier equipped with this technology within 1 week. And her engineering team worked miracles. They had blueprints distributed to every military base on Earth, on Luna, and on Mars within hours. Factories that had been producing conventional weapons switched to the new frequency technology. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't fast, but humanity had something it hadn't had before: hope. The OK noticed the change. Their patrols started dying. Their ships started taking damage. The war leader of the OK fleet, a massive alien named, watched the reports with growing anger. These primitive creatures were supposed to be easy prey. Instead, they were adapting. They were learning. They were fighting back. Had conquered 47 worlds for the OK Empire. He had never lost a battle. His pride wouldn't allow him to lose to humans. He sent a message to the OK, requesting reinforcements. But he also made a mistake. He got angry, and angry commanders make poor decisions. Meanwhile, a young man named Nam was doing something that would change the war. Was a hacker, one of the best in the world. While everyone else was fighting or building weapons, he was doing something different. He was breaking into the OK computer networks. Alien computers were complicated, but they followed logical patterns. Spent weeks studying captured OK equipment, learning their programming language. Finally, he got in. He accessed their communication systems. He could see everything: their ship positions, their supply routes, their patrol schedules. Commander Park, said during a video call with Sentinel-7. I can see what they're doing, all of it. Felt a surge of excitement. Can you feed us their positions in real time? Better, said with a grin. I can change their orders. I can make them go where we want them to go. This was the turning point. Humanity had the weapon to hurt the OK. They had the intelligence to know where the aliens were. Now they needed the courage to strike back hard. Called a meeting of all military commanders. On the screen were faces from every continent, from Luna, from Mars, from orbital stations. They were tired faces, sad faces, angry faces, but they were also determined faces. For 3 weeks we've been defending, said. We've been surviving. That ends now. Starting today, we attack. Starting today, we show the OK what happens when you threaten humanity. Admiral spoke up. What's the target? Smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who had found prey. Their command carrier said, the war leader's flagship. We're going to kill and show his empire that humans are not prey. We are the hunters now. Checked his weapons one more time. 50 pilots had volunteered for this suicide mission. They all knew most of them wouldn't come back, but they also knew this attack could change everything. For Earth, whispered as his fighter launched into the dark sky. For humanity, the other pilots replied. The OK command carrier was called the Eternal Victory. It hung in orbit above Africa like a dark monument to alien pride. Inside, War Leader reviewed reports of increasing human resistance with growing frustration. These creatures were supposed to be broken by now, begging for mercy. Instead, they were killing his soldiers and destroying his ships. Increase patrols, ordered his officers. Show no mercy to any human settlements. They need to learn their place. He had no idea that 50 human fighters were already approaching his position. Led the attack formation through the debris field that orbited Earth. Dead satellites and destroyed ships provided cover as they got closer. His new weapons hummed with power, ready to disable OK shields. Behind him, 49 other pilots flew in tight formation. They had trained for this mission for only 3 days. It wasn't enough time, but time was a luxury they didn't have. Remember the plan, said over the radio. Hit the shields with frequency weapons first. Once they're down, fire everything else. Don't try to be heroes. Fire and get out. Easy for you to say, one pilot joked nervously. You love being a hero. Smiled despite the tension. Someone has to look good for the history books. They came out of the debris field at full speed. The Eternal Victory's sensors detected them immediately. Alarms rang throughout the massive ship. Gun turrets swiveled to track the tiny human fighters. Stood up from his command chair, his 4 eyes narrowing. Destroy them, he commanded. The carrier opened fire. Blue bolts of energy filled space like a deadly light show. 2 human fighters exploded immediately. Then 3 more. Gritted his teeth and kept flying. He locked onto the carrier's shield generator and fired his frequency weapon. All around him, the other pilots did the same. 50 beams of electromagnetic energy hit the Eternal Victory's shields from different angles. The shields flickered once, twice. Then they failed completely. Shields down, screamed. Hit them now. The fighters unleashed every missile they had. Hundreds of explosives slammed into the unprotected hull of the carrier. Armor plating ripped apart. Internal explosions blossomed inside the ship. The Eternal Victory shuddered like a dying beast. Inside staggered as his ship shook. Flames erupted from control panels. His officers were screaming reports of damage. Half the ship was exposed to vacuum. Thousands of his crew were dead or dying. Impossible, roared. These primitives cannot. Another explosion cut off his words. The command deck lost gravity, floated helplessly as his flagship began to break apart around him. Watched the carrier split in half. Debris and bodies spilled out into space. He felt no joy, only grim satisfaction. This was justice for the billions of humans the OK had killed. All fighters return to base, he ordered. They had lost 18 pilots, but they had killed a OK war leader and destroyed his command ship. It was worth the cost. Back on Sentinel-7, Commander watched the footage with intense focus. The destruction of the Eternal Victory was being broadcast on every screen across Earth. Humans who had been hiding in fear for weeks suddenly felt something new, hope. But wasn't celebrating yet. He knew the OK would respond with fury. He was right. Within hours, the remaining OK fleet began a systematic attack on every human military installation they could find. Bases on Earth, Luna, and Mars came under heavy bombardment. The aliens were no longer playing games. They wanted revenge. "They're hitting us hard," Admiral reported from the lunar base. "We're holding, but barely." "Hold as long as you can," said. "We're preparing a counterstrike." Nam had been working non-stop since the carrier's destruction. He had deeper access to OK systems now, and what he found was valuable. The aliens had a major supply depot on the dark side of Luna. If humanity could destroy it, the OK fleet would run out of fuel and ammunition within a week. Immediately began planning Operation Serpent's Tooth. It would be a ground assault, led by Sergeant and her best soldiers. They would use the element of surprise and the new frequency weapons to overwhelm the depot's defenders. Gathered her team in the tunnels beneath Tokyo. They were hardened fighters now, veterans of weeks of guerrilla warfare. She looked at each face and saw determination. "This is a one-way trip unless we win," told them honestly. "The depot is heavily defended. We'll be outnumbered 10-1. But if we take it out, we starve their whole fleet. Earth survives." "Then let's go make history," one soldier said. They traveled to Luna on a stealth transport, one of the few ships that could avoid OK sensors. The landing was rough, and they lost 2 soldiers when the transport crashed harder than planned. But the rest made it out alive and began the long march to the supply depot. The depot was built inside a crater, protected by walls and gun towers. OK soldiers patrolled the perimeter in groups, spent 6 hours watching their patterns, counting their numbers, finding weaknesses. Finally, she saw her opportunity. "There's a shift change at midnight," she told her team. "For 5 minutes the north wall will have minimum guards. That's our entry point." When midnight came, team struck fast and silent. They used frequency weapons to disable the guard towers without making noise. Then they scaled the walls and dropped into the depot compound. Alarms immediately started wailing. Stealth was over. Now it was pure combat. The fighting was brutal and close. Humans and OK clashed in narrow corridors and storage rooms. The aliens were bigger and stronger, but the humans were desperate and angry, fought with a fury she didn't know she had, shooting aliens at point-blank range. "Plant the charges," she screamed to her demolition experts. "We need to blow this place now." Her soldiers ran through the depot, placing explosive charges on fuel tanks and ammunition storage. Behind them, more OK soldiers poured into the compound. The humans were being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. "Charges set," the demolition leader reported, "but we need 10 minutes to get clear." "We don't have 10 minutes, said, looking at the mass of aliens coming toward them. She made a decision. "Everyone who can move, run now. Get to the extraction point." Half her team ran for the exit, and 12 others stayed behind, creating a defensive line to buy time. They fired continuously, dropping OK soldiers one after another, but more kept coming. "Sergeant, you need to go," one of her soldiers yelled. "Not yet," said, her weapon overheating in her hands. 30 more seconds. 20 seconds. The OK were almost on top of them. 10 seconds. Could see their faces clearly now, twisted in alien rage. 5 seconds. "Run!" screamed. They sprinted for the exit as the charges detonated. The explosion was massive, visible from Earth. The entire depot and everything in it vanished in a ball of fire. The shockwave threw and her soldiers across the lunar surface. She hit the ground hard, her suit's alarms screaming about air leaks. But she was alive. She looked back and saw nothing where the depot had been, just a smoking crater. "We did it," she whispered, then passed out from lack of oxygen. The destruction of the supply depot was the turning point of the war. The OK fleet suddenly found itself running low on resources. They had to choose between continuing attacks or conserving power. Their advance slowed, then stopped. Seized the opportunity. He launched Operation Valkyrie, a massive coordinated strike using every combat-capable ship humanity had left. 8,000 vessels, fighters, destroyers, converted civilian ships with weapons strapped on, rose from Earth, Luna, and Mars simultaneously. The battle lasted 14 hours. The sky above Earth burned with explosions and weapon fire. Ships on both sides were destroyed by the dozens, then the hundreds. Flew until his fighter had no weapons left, then he used his ship as a battering ram, ejecting at the last second before impact. Admiral commanded from her flagship, directing human forces with precision. She had spent her whole life in the military, but never in a battle like this. The OK fought with desperation now, realizing they might actually lose. When the battle finally ended, the OK fleet was shattered. 2/3 of their ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors retreated to the outer solar system, regrouping. Humanity had won the battle for Earth's orbit, but everyone knew the war wasn't over. The OK Empire was vast. They would send more ships. The question was whether humanity could hold them off when they came. 3 months after the Battle of Earth's orbit, humanity was no longer defending. They were hunting. Engineers stood in a factory on Mars, watching the first ghost ship roll off the production line. It was a beautiful machine, sleek and deadly. Using reverse-engineered OK technology combined with human innovation, these ships were invisible to alien sensors. They could strike without warning and disappear before the enemy could respond. "How many can we build per week?" Commander asked. He had traveled to Mars specifically to see this. 10 ships per week from this factory, replied. "We have 5 more factories coming online next month. By the end of the year, we'll have over 200 ghost ships." Smiled. "Good. The hunters are about to become the hunted." The first ghost ship mission was a raid on a OK fuel convoy traveling between star systems. Captain Sara Bay, a young pilot who had survived the orbital battle, commanded the vessel. She was only 23 years old, but she had already destroyed 6 enemy ships. Some called her lucky. Others called her skilled. She just called herself angry. "Target acquired," Sara said to her crew. 3 transport ships, 2 escorts, standard convoy formation. The ghost ship approached silently through space. The OK sensors saw nothing. No warning alarms rang. The convoy continued peacefully on its route, completely unaware of the death coming toward them. "Fire," Sara ordered. Frequency weapons disabled the shields of all 5 ships simultaneously. Then the ghost ship unleashed conventional weapons. Missiles and energy beams tore through the unprotected hulls. The 3 transport ships exploded, their fuel igniting in massive fireballs. The 2 escorts tried to fight back, but they couldn't see their attacker. The ghost ship destroyed them both within minutes. "Convoy eliminated," Sara reported. "No human casualties, returning to base." Across the solar system and beyond, more ghost ships were executing similar raids. OK supply lines were being cut. Communication relays were being destroyed. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't track, and couldn't stop. On Earth, Sargent had recovered from her injuries on Luna. Now she was leading an assault on a OK fortress city in what used to be Beijing. The aliens had fortified the entire city, turning it into a military base. 10,000 OK soldiers occupied it, and they had enslaved 50,000 human prisoners to work as laborers. Its force numbered only 2,000 soldiers, but they had surprise and determination on their side. They also had the new frequency weapons, which had been improved even further. Doctor had developed a version that could disable OK personal shields, not just ship shields. "Remember, we're here to free the prisoners," told her team before the attack. "Kill the enemy but protect the civilians. Every human life we save is a victory." The attack began at dawn. Human forces poured into the fortress city from 12 different entry points simultaneously. The OK responded with heavy weapons, but their shields failed within seconds. What should have been an impossible battle became a fair fight. And in a fair fight, the humans had rage on their side. Led her squad through the streets, firing at any alien soldier she saw. The OK were trained warriors, but they had never faced an enemy this motivated. Every human in the assault force had lost family, friends, homes. They fought with the fury of people who had nothing left to lose. "This is for Seoul," one soldier screamed, throwing a grenade into a OK bunker. "This is for my daughter," another yelled, shooting an alien officer. The battle lasted 18 hours. By the end, 8,000 OK soldiers were dead. The surviving 2,000 surrendered, the first time in the war that OK forces had given up. Watched as they dropped their weapons and raised their hands. She felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. The freed human prisoners emerged from the buildings where they had been held. They were thin, scared, and traumatized, but they were alive. Medical teams rushed to help them. Saw a little girl, maybe 7 years old, being carried by a medic. The girl looked at with hollow eyes. "Is it over?" the girl asked quietly. "Are the monsters gone?" Wanted to say yes. She wanted to promise this child that everything would be okay, but she couldn't lie. "We're winning," said instead, "one battle at a time." The victory at Beijing sent shockwaves through the OK Empire. For the first time in 200 years of conquest, they had lost a ground battle. Other species that the OK had enslaved heard the news through underground channels. Rebellions began on 3 conquered worlds. The Empire's grip on its territory was weakening. In space, Admiral was executing the most daring operation of the war. Intelligence from hacking had revealed that a major OK relief fleet was coming to reinforce their remaining forces in the solar system. Instead of waiting to defend against it, planned an ambush. "We'll hide behind Mars," explained to her officers. "When they arrive and their sensors are busy scanning Earth, we'll come around the planet and hit them from behind. They won't expect us to attack while we're still recovering from the last battle." It was a risky plan. If it failed, Earth would be defenseless against the relief fleet. But if it succeeded, humanity would effectively win the war for the solar system. The OK relief fleet arrived exactly when intelligence predicted. 23 warships, including 3 heavy cruisers. They moved confidently toward Earth, expecting to find their forces in control and humans cowering in fear. Instead, they found Admiral's fleet waiting behind Mars. "All ships attack," ordered. The human fleet erupted from behind the red planet like an avalanche. Ghost ships disabled the OK shields while conventional warships fired everything they had. The aliens tried to respond, but they were caught completely off guard. Their formation broke apart as ships tried to turn and face the unexpected threat. Who had been given command of a squadron of fighters, led his people straight into the heart of the enemy fleet. "Split them up," he shouted. "Don't let them regroup." The battle became chaos. Ships twisted and turned, firing at point-blank range. 2 human destroyers rammed OK cruisers, their crews sacrificing themselves to take out the larger ships. Admiral directed the battle from her flagship, her voice calm even as explosions rocked her ship. After 6 hours of fighting, the OK relief fleet was annihilated. Only 2 ships escaped, fleeing back toward their empire with news of the catastrophic defeat. Humanity had lost 30 ships, but they had destroyed 21 enemy vessels. The solar system was now firmly under human control. But the war wasn't over. Doctor had been working on something during all these battles, something that would end the war permanently. She called it a nanotech virus, and it was designed to disable OK technology from the inside. If they could get it into the alien computer networks, it would spread like a disease, shutting down ships, weapons, and systems across their entire fleet. "It's ready," told Commander during a private meeting, "but there's a problem." "What problem?" asked. "It will kill them," said quietly. "Not just disable their ships. The virus will shut down their life support systems. Every OK on every infected ship will die." Sat back in his chair, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. How many? If we release it into their network, millions, maybe billions across their whole empire. Can we control it? Make it only target military ships? Shook her head. No, once it's released, it will spread to every OK system it can reach. Military, civilian, doesn't matter. Was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I need to think about this. This isn't a decision one person should make." Over the next week, consulted with every leader he could contact. Some argued they should use the virus immediately. The OK had killed billions of humans without mercy. Why should humanity show mercy now? Others argued that genocide was wrong, even against an enemy that had tried to commit genocide against them. Two wrongs didn't make a right. Finally, the United Earth Council voted. It was close, but the decision was made. The virus would be authorized, but only for use against military targets if possible. If the OK sent another invasion fleet, humanity would use the virus to stop them. It would be a weapon of last resort, but it would be ready. Nam began infiltrating the virus into captured OK systems, positioning it to spread when activated. The weapon was loaded and aimed. All they needed was a target. They wouldn't have to wait long. Sensors detected a massive fleet gathering at the edge of OK space. It was the largest military force ever assembled in known history. The Grand Fleet was coming, and they intended to erase humanity from existence. The Grand Fleet emerged at the edge of the solar system like a storm made of metal and hatred. 10,000 warships. The entire military might of the OK Empire, gathered for one purpose, to destroy humanity completely. They had lost their pride, their territory, their reputation as unstoppable conquerors. Now they wanted revenge, and they would pay any price to get it. On Earth, Commander Park stood in Sentinel-7's command center, watching the sensors track the approaching doom. Every ship humanity had was already in position around Earth. 8,000 vessels, from massive destroyers to tiny fighters. It was an impressive fleet, but they were outnumbered. The math was simple and cruel. "We can't win a straight fight," Admiral said quietly. She stood beside, her face tired but determined. "I know," replied. "That's why we're not fighting straight." He opened a communication channel to every ship, every station, every soldier in the solar system. His face appeared on millions of screens. People from Earth, Luna, Mars, and the orbital stations all watched their commander prepare to speak. "6 months ago they came to kill us," said. "They thought we would be easy prey. They thought we would break. They were wrong. Every time they pushed us, we pushed back harder. Every time they took something from us, we took more from them. They came here as conquerors. They're about to leave as a warning to the entire galaxy. This is humanity's stand. This is where we prove that we don't give up. We don't surrender. We fight until we win or until there's nothing left to fight with." On his flagship, checked his weapons one final time. He had survived 6 major battles. His friends said he was immortal. He knew he was just lucky, and luck eventually ran out. But today wasn't about luck. Today was about making sure his death meant something. Sargent was on Earth's surface, commanding ground-based missile batteries. If the orbital defense failed, she would be the last line between the OK and the civilians hiding in bunkers below. She thought about the little girl from Beijing, the one who had asked if the monsters were gone, had promised they were winning. She intended to keep that promise. Doctor sat in her laboratory, her hand hovering over a single button. That button would activate the virus, releasing it into the OK networks through the systems had infiltrated. It would spread like fire through dry grass, infecting every ship, every station, every piece of technology the aliens had. It would also kill millions of them. "I'm ready when you give the order," said to over a private channel. "Wait for my signal," replied. "We try to win without it first." The Grand Fleet closed in. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of ships advancing on Earth. When they reached weapons range, they stopped and sent one final message. It was in perfect English this time. They had learned the language well. "Humanity, you have humiliated the OK Empire. You have killed our warriors. You have destroyed our ships. For these crimes, your species will be erased. Your cities will be dust. Your monuments will be forgotten. You will die knowing that you fought bravely, but bravery is not enough against the inevitable. Surrender now, and we will make your extinction quick. Resist, and we will make it last forever." Muted the channel and smiled coldly. "Did everyone hear that?" he asked his fleet. "Yes, sir," came thousands of voices. "Good. Remember those words when we start killing them." The battle began. The OK Grand Fleet attacked as one massive unit, their weapons lighting up space. The human fleet met them head-on, using swarm tactics developed over months of fighting. They didn't try to match the alien ship for ship. Instead, they swarmed around the larger vessels like angry bees, attacking from every angle at once. Ghost ships appeared from nowhere, disabled shields, and vanished before the OK could respond. Regular fighters dove in behind them, firing missiles into the gaps. Destroyers used their heavier weapons to tear apart the larger enemy ships. It was chaos, exactly as had planned. The OK commanders tried to maintain formation, but the human tactics broke their discipline. Ships broke away to chase individual fighters, leaving gaps in their defense. Those gaps became targets. The Grand Fleet's perfect wall became a confused mess of individual battles. But humanity was still outnumbered. For every OK ship destroyed, they destroyed 3 human vessels, watched his squadron get cut down around him. One by one, his pilots died. He kept fighting, kept firing, kept moving. His fighter took hit after hit, systems failing one by one. "Sentinel-7, this is Eagle-1, he said, his voice calm despite the alarm screaming in his cockpit. "I'm hit bad. Not going to make it. Redirecting course for ramming attack on flagship." "Negative," Eagle-1 said. "Eject and let the autopilot." "No time, sir," interrupted. "It's been an honor." He cut the channel and pushed his dying fighter to maximum speed, aiming for the largest ship in the Grand Fleet. Watched the screen as fighter hit the OK flagship. The explosion was tiny compared to the massive ship, but it damaged critical systems. The flagship began to list, its weapons going offline, had given his life to hurt them one more time. "All ships target that flagship," ordered, his voice rough with emotion. "Make his sacrifice count." The human fleet concentrated fire on the damaged vessel. Without its shields, it couldn't survive the bombardment. The flagship broke apart, taking the OK Grand Admiral with it. But it wasn't enough. The battle had been raging for 6 hours and humanity was losing. They had destroyed 3,000 enemy ships, but they were down to 4,000 vessels themselves. The math was turning against them. In another 2 hours, the human fleet would be annihilated. Looked at the casualty reports scrolling across his screen. So many dead, so many sacrifices. Was he willing to add millions more deaths to that count? Enemy deaths, yes, but deaths nonetheless. He thought about the little girl from Beijing. He thought about every human child hiding in bunkers, waiting to see if the monsters would come back. He thought about who had just died to give them a chance. He thought about the billions already lost. Made his decision. "Doctor," he said quietly, "activate the virus." Closed her eyes for just a moment, then she pressed the button. The virus spread through the OK networks at the speed of light. It moved through communication channels, through captured equipment, through every system that had infiltrated over the past months. Within seconds, it reached the Grand Fleet. Within minutes, it infected thousands of ships. At first, the OK didn't notice. The virus worked silently, rewriting code, disabling systems piece by piece. Then the shields started failing. Weapons went offline. Life support systems began to shut down. On a OK destroyer, the commander watched in horror as his screens went black one by one. His crew tried desperately to fix the problems, but they couldn't. The virus was everywhere in everything. The air stopped circulating. The temperature dropped. Emergency lights flickered and died. "What's happening?" the commander demanded, but his crew had no answers. They had no air to answer with. Within minutes, everyone on that ship was dead. Across the Grand Fleet, the same thing happened. Ships went dark. Systems failed. Thousands of vessels became floating tombs in space. Some OK tried to abandon ship, but their escape pods were infected too. The virus showed no mercy because it couldn't. It was a weapon designed to win, and it did exactly what it was built to do. The few OK ships that weren't infected tried to flee. Some had been far enough away or isolated enough to avoid the virus. Maybe 2,000 ships out of 10,000 escaped. They ran, jumping to faster-than-light speeds as quickly as they could, desperate to get away from the death spreading through their fleet. The human fleet watched in stunned silence as 8,000 enemy ships simply stopped functioning. They floated lifelessly in space, dead crews inside. It was the most complete military victory in history, but it felt hollow. "Should we pursue?" Admiral asked, looking at the fleeing ships. "No," said. "Let them go. Let them tell their empire what happened here. Let them spread the word that humanity is not to be attacked." On Earth's surface, got the report and allowed herself to collapse against a wall. Her missile batteries hadn't needed to fire a single shot. The orbital battle was over. Earth was safe. She thought of that little girl and smiled. Yes, the monsters were gone now. In the following weeks, humanity sent medical teams to the disabled OK ships. They found some survivors, aliens who had been in shielded areas or who had gotten to emergency supplies in time. These survivors were offered a choice: face trial for war crimes or return to their empire with a message. Most chose to return. The message they carried was simple: leave humanity alone. The OK Empire collapsed within a year. The species that had conquered 47 worlds couldn't survive the destruction of their grand fleet. Civil war broke out among the survivors. Conquered species rebelled and won their freedom. The great empire crumbled into dust. Humanity reached out to these newly freed species, offering friendship instead of conquest. The Earth Coalition was formed, an alliance of worlds that had all suffered under OK rule. Together, they began rebuilding. Commander Park was elected as the first Secretary General of the United Earth Government. He spent his first year in office ensuring that humanity would never be caught unprepared again. Shipyards worked constantly. The military expanded, but he also pushed for peaceful exploration and scientific advancement. Doctor continued her research, but she destroyed every copy of the virus except one. That one copy was locked in a vault, guarded by 100 soldiers. She wrote a single note that was attached to it: "Never again, unless there is no other choice." 1 year after the invasion ended, a memorial was built in what used to be Seoul. It listed the names of 4 billion humans who died in the war. Sargent attended the dedication ceremony. Beside her was the little girl from Beijing, now living with a foster family. "Why did humans fight so hard?" the girl asked, looking at the endless list of names. Thought about ramming his fighter into the enemy flagship. She thought about the soldiers who stayed behind at the Luna Depot. She thought about everyone who had sacrificed everything. "Because we're human," said quietly, "and humans don't give up, not ever." The girl nodded, understanding more than her young years should allow. Together they looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the survivors of the OK Empire were rebuilding. So was humanity, but now everyone knew the truth. Earth was not prey, humanity was not weak, and anyone who tried to destroy them would face the same fate as the Grand Fleet. The invasion was over, humanity had survived, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again.